Well, let's bring in Professor Guy Midgley. He's a Climate Studies Director at Stellenbosch University. Prof, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us today. Lovely blue skies where you are, but not the case for many parts of the country.
Indeed, this is the wilds of the Southern Cape, and it's a little bit breezy, but very clear skies, as you can see. But it was very cloudy yesterday.
I wonder, just given the level of warnings that have been issued for many parts of the country, here in Gauteng, we've been warned about heavy rainfall. Obviously, there's a huge possibility for flooding, hailstorms, the ability for our municipalities to respond to flooding when it does impact residents. How would you rate our preparedness as a country?
Well, to start off, I think our weather services are world leaders, and we've got a fantastic early warning system. The communication of early warning is something that always can be improved. That's a very strongly social process. It needs to be backed up by science, but the communication itself and how it's translated is very important. And then it's, at the level of municipalities, that's where the handover happens. And it's there, I think, that we need to do a lot of learning very quickly on how to cope with extreme weather events. But my message is that if the weather services is giving you a warning, they're right most of the time. So take it very seriously.
No, absolutely. Our weather service, as you say, does issue these warnings quite timeously. But does that really matter when we do seem so unprepared? And even if we wanted to become prepared, that's the kind of investment we should have made some time ago.
Well, it's not too late. The weather services is still highly functional. And I've always argued that the weather services should be completely invested in. It's an investment that makes more money back than the investment. So it makes absolutely no sense not to invest in weather services. In fact, it's dumb not to do so. The trick is how to translate these really, really effective weather warnings into action at the local level. And that's where we have to learn very, very fast. And local municipalities, if you look at the Climate Change Act, the local authorities are incredibly important in making sure this happens. But we've got to train the expertise and pay those people in those situations, because this is something that's not going away in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So this is an investment that's going to pay back for decades to come.
No, not going away, quite the contrary. It's going to get worse if we don't act. I mean, as a country, to your knowledge, do we have a comprehensive national disaster risk reduction strategy that's being implemented, that is being used consistently across all provinces? All right, clear skies there, but it does seem that we have lost Professor Guy Midgley for the moment, at least, to some technical gremlins. I'm going to, yet again, as we do, just give it a moment and see if he does come back to us. And there he is. Professor Midgley, we lost you for a second there. And now I think that all your words are sort of tumbling out as the connection reestablishes itself. But what I was asking you is, do we have a comprehensive plan that all our provinces are sticking to and implementing around the country?
We have some comprehensive planning. I don't think it's fully stitched up and tied together. But we have the right sort of things in place to get that done. And I would say that has to happen very urgently. I think it's a priority as a climate change strategy to get our disaster risk up and running first, because that's how we're getting exposed to climate change. That's our first exposure to this thing that's going to be hitting us for the next few decades.
Yeah. And what would be contained in that kind of comprehensive plan?
Well, according to the warning level, what sort of contingencies have to be put in place? So if you have a high fire warning, are the resources available to fight a fire? If it's going to be flooding, do you have enough contingencies in place to house people that might be flooded out of their homes? If it's a heat wave, do you have enough hospital facilities and cooling facilities to look after very young and very old people in particular? So each weather event comes with its own requirements. Mm-hmm. And if municipalities can understand that and put those in place, we've got to make the budgets available. We've got to make the contingency. We've got to be able to move resources around the country quickly because we can't invest everywhere all the time. So this is, I think the military could actually play an important role in this, a good peacetime role for the military here.
I suppose what gives us all pause is the fact that we've had major disasters over a period of many years, right? We think about KwaZulu-Natal and the flooding there that happened many, many years ago. I think it was 2020, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps even further back than that. And it doesn't seem with every new flooding event, particularly in that province, that we have learnt those lessons.
Well, it's very difficult. If you haven't recovered by the time the next event arrives, that's when things get really, really tough. And I think that's, in a sense, been happening in KwaZulu-Natal area. And these things do go in cycles. So there will be a time for some recovery, but then it's got to be done. We've got to focus on it very, very urgently. So we need to work with the cycles, the ENSO cycles, El Niño, La Niña, and other cycles that we know about. We're doing some very interesting research that suggests that wildfire risk in the Western Cape increases with extreme El Niño and La Niña, which is quite interesting. So if we could get those sorts of rules in place, we could give those early warnings way further in advance than just a few days. You could literally be warning in advance, weeks to months. And that's where we really need to get to.
Mm. Or else we're playing catch up, right? We're hardly recovering from one disaster before another one strikes. And we all know who pays the biggest price for that. It's the most vulnerable communities.
That's true. And eventually people leave those areas and you get displacement, which is a social disruption for everybody. So, there are very, very real social and economic consequences to these events. And that's why we've got to invest in getting it right. And we have all the skills in place. We just got to tie them together much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much for your perspective. Professor Guy Midgley is a Climate Studies Director at Stellenbosch University. And of course, this is in light of the fact that Gauteng residents have been advised to remain vigilant today. There's a level 4 warning in place for parts of the province.